With demand for energy rising across the globe, the search for oil and gas and the development of our resources takes the industry into extreme environments. Many of these developments occur in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the Middle East, Western Africa, and India. Drilling in 60 to 300 feet of water and then beyond to 10,000 feet, 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet is no easy task. I'm Richard Loomis. Today, we're visiting with one of the companies on the front line of these developments, Hercules Offshore. Hercules is now the largest operator of jackups in the Gulf of Mexico and the fourth largest in the world. How did all this begin?
Well, it became apparent to me and several other people several years ago that the major drilling contractors, particularly the publicly traded drilling contractors, were focused almost entirely on the deep water and high specification jackup markets. We thought that was an opportunity to get into this business. It was a very fragmented business, and it was in a segment where, quite frankly, we felt like the opportunity was there for us to acquire assets that other companies didn't want. So we were likely going to be the buyer of choice. And as we got into the business, it proved to be the case. We started the business with the acquisition of 5 jackups from Parker Drilling Company for only $39 million. In fact, just one of those jackups today would sell for more than that. We followed that very quickly with the acquisition of the lift boat business from Global Industries for $52 million. And again, that was a very attractive price for those assets. The price you'd have to pay today for those things is probably 7 or 8 times that.
What are some of the other milestones that have occurred over the last 3 years?
Well, certainly those 2 acquisitions, but I think if you look at what we did after that, we followed that with the acquisition of 17 lift boats from Superior Energy Services that really expanded our business in the Gulf of Mexico in lift boats. We followed that with another lift boat acquisition, the Laborde lift boat fleet, and we also bought the Danos and Carol lift boat business, which positioned us to move into West Africa. That was our very first international operation. At the time of our IPO, we had 0 international exposure. Today, about 30% of our business comes from outside the Gulf of Mexico.
Randy, that's a lot of growth. Lisa, what criteria do you use when you're evaluating these acquisitions?
Well, there's 2 main criteria. First, it has to be a strategic fit. And to be strategic, it can either be a growth for our current core markets or it can be a new market that we're targeting. And the second is financial. It needs to meet our hurdle rates, and we target, as Randy mentioned, we look at our return on capital employed, and for an acquisition, it has to be at least 15%. And when we look at it, we don't just look in the near term. We look kind of through cycle, a mid-cycle return of 15% for the acquisition.
In light of that, how does Delta Towing fit into your strategy?
That's a little bit different business for us. It's a business that we weren't in previously. I think we're looking at that potentially as a growth opportunity because it's in a very fragmented segment of the business. We could sell that business. We could grow that business. There are a lot of opportunities there.
Lisa, there seems to be a lot of money chasing the energy industry these days. Has Hercules been able to take advantage of this?
And we have. The money that's been available in the financial markets has been, key to the company's historic growth. We, since our inception, we have done an IPO, 2 equity follow-ons, and a few debt offerings as well, the most recent being the $900 million term loan for the Todco acquisition. And what we've really done is we've tried to maintain a conservative capital structure and allowing us financial flexibility to take advantage of future opportunities.
Well, since you bring it up, what were some of the key elements that brought you to the Todco acquisition?
Obviously it was right down our core market, with the shallow market jackups, and it met our hurdle rates. It also gave us a growth platform for the infrastructure within the company.
Randy, that's a lot of companies and a lot of assets. How have all these acquisitions affected the culture of Hercules?
Well, I think we were fortunate in that we had a very experienced management team from the start, typically about 25 years experience in the industry. We're also fortunate in that a lot of the people that we've acquired with these acquisitions are people that have worked together in the past. It's actually a very small industry in some respects. There have been a lot of M&As that have taken place over the years. And because we have a culture that really rewards individual performance, we like people to take responsibility. We hold them accountable for that. And I think it's a culture that people thrive in.
Lisa, you're relatively new to Hercules. How does this culture compare to your previous companies?
Well, this culture, one thing I enjoy about this culture, which is similar to my previous company, is that we're in growth mode. And so you're working together as a team to build new infrastructure, create value for the shareholders.
So let's talk about strategy. Has your overall strategy changed since you opened the company?
Our overall strategy has been fairly constant since the company was formed. We said early on that we were going to grow the company primarily through acquisition of existing assets, and that's what we've done. We've also focused very heavily on geographic expansion and international opportunities where we could move existing assets into those regions. And finally, we've always said we wanted to be a low-cost provider and be very efficient in the way we provide our services. And we try also to be very efficient and effective and disciplined in our financial strategies as well.
But in the energy industry, we see a lot of price volatility. Oil over $70, the price of natural gas all the way up to $8, $9, $10 at times. Does this affect your overall strategy?
Our strategy has largely remained the same, and really when you look at the longer-term fundamentals, we don't think things are going to change very much. I think it's very likely that we'll see very robust natural gas prices in the U.S. As we get into 2008 and probably in the near future after that. Although we see some weakness in natural gas in the near term, and as we get into the shoulder season as far as natural gas injection into storage, I think we could see some additional weakness during that part of the year, but that won't continue very long.
Randy, several times now you've mentioned that you're a shallow water operator. Where exactly is your base of operations today?
Well, today a lot of our business comes from the Gulf of Mexico. That's where we started the company. We also have operations in the Far East, the Middle East, West Africa, India. We have had some operations in Latin America. We have operations in Mexico. And that'll probably continue on into the future.
Randy, we've talked a lot about Todco. But Todco also had a land-based operation. Is it your intention to continue with this business?
Well, I think as the name implies, Hercules Offshore, we've always said that we were not going to be a land player. We want to have offshore assets. So we're actively marketing our land rigs. As we find a buyer for that at an attractive price, we'll sell that business. We're not in a big rush to do that because those businesses and the rigs that we have operating on land are generating very good returns right now. But I do think that as soon as we can sell those, we will.
Randy, one thing we all know for certain is that this industry is constantly changing. How have you seen the markets you serve change over the last 3 years?
Well, I think shortly after we formed the company, we saw a dramatic ramp up in activity in the Gulf of Mexico. We saw a continued migration of rigs out of the Gulf of Mexico. And as a result, our business was expanding. Utilization and day rates were expanding both in the jackup business as well as our lift boat business. And 18 months ago, we saw some record day rates in both of those businesses as we approached almost 100% utilization across the board. Since then, I'd say over the past 12 months, we've seen the markets weaken somewhat for jackups. It's still a very good market, but we don't have the same level of utilization that we had a year ago. That'll probably change in the future, but at least right now it's where it is, and it'll probably stay that way throughout the rest of this year. As we get into 2008, we should see some improvement. Fortunately, the international markets are still very strong.
But how do you think things will play out as we go into 2008?
I think as we get into 2008, we're going to see several things happen. We expect to see several additional rigs leave the Gulf of Mexico for other markets. We expect to see commodity prices start to recover late 2007, early 2008. We've also seen a number of property transactions on the shelf in the Gulf of Mexico. And when that happens, the people that are selling those properties aren't going to spend any money drilling. The people that are newly acquiring those properties, it takes them time to get their arms around the new properties and decide what the drilling prospects are. So that slows things down. We've also had a situation because we've had increasing production on land in the U.S. We've had increasing LNG imports this year because there weren't any other places for those cargoes to go. That really has created a situation where we've had a little more gas than we really need in the U.S. That's probably going to dry up as we get into 2008, and we think we'll see additional demand coupled with a slightly shrinking supply of rigs in the Gulf of Mexico that should help things there. Internationally, we expect things to continue to be very strong. All the international markets are good right now, and even with the new build rigs that are coming into the market that are likely to move into those international segments, there's enough demand to take up all that slack as we get through 2008.
Randy, we'll have to see how this all plays out.